Batman is a vampire. There. That's the only cheap shot I'm taking on that. James Gunn shares his thoughts on Asgardians of the Galaxy, plus a red versus blue double dose on the first word. And stick around to the end, we're talking about the future of TV in a post-Game of Thrones world. All of that and more coming up on Fandom Nonsense. I'm trying to decide because we only have like 40 more, because I want to get to 100 and then go to a normal podcast and do Fandom more as a newscast kind of thing. But I don't know if we should start doing like once a month, having just a normal podcast and start working that in and just having
just us talking kind of thing.
Right.
I would love that.
Yeah, because I could get Jacob, Brian, everyone that doesn't want or can't contribute to these conversations to just, and that's what I would really love to have the couches for, is, you know, to just sit back, relax, and just have a normal conversation with the camera rolling.
I think that's where we all shine anyway.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Speaking of the camera rolling, welcome to Fandom Nonsense. I'm Zach.
Serena.
Oh man, I just expected I'm Aaron right after Zach. So I'm Zach. I'm Aaron. I'm also Nolan.
There it is. It's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So, big news coming out this week. I'm sure you guys have seen.
Pattinson?
Yeah, Robert Pattinson may be the next Batman. I mean, obviously you can, you know, make the jokes about Twilight and everything. That was so fucking long ago, and everyone makes bad movies.
It wasn't his fault.
It wasn't his fault, and of course there's the classic example of the roles that Heath Ledger was in before for the Joker. Sure. That's the thing that comes up every time that...
Fucking Michael Keaton got it too, because he was Mr. Mom. And they were like, how's he going to be Batman?
Now he is Batman.
Right. Actors, by definition, are supposed to change based on the role they're given.
Right.
It's not unheard of for somebody to take on a certain role and then completely change.
And I mean, some actors, I guess you can see a trajectory of it or whatever. Like it makes sense or whatever. But honestly, what actor besides Chris Evans has pulled off playing multiple superhero roles? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that anybody has experience in this world. Everybody comes into this world with fresh eyes, and some may be coming from a comedy or even rom-com kind of background, and some more from more action-based, where again it makes more sense for them to be in these kind of roles.
Yeah.
But either way, it's new territory for anybody jumping into these roles. Pattinson has just as much experience coming into this as fucking Ben Affleck. At least he's played a vampire before.
My only issue with this is that the kind of Batman we're kind of forced to see if he's the age that Robert Pattinson actually is. Because how far into Batman's training could he possibly be? Like, if he's Batman now, he's like young Batman just getting out into the streets.
But that's more interesting to me.
Is it?
Yeah. Batman at either end of the spectrum, because we've had prime Batman in literally every single movie except for BVS. So
well, I just don't want to be forced through another Batman intro. If they do it like Homecoming, where we're seeing like young, early formative Batman, but just letting all the obvious stuff about Batman's origin go by the wayside.
Exactly. See, the thing about Batman's origins to me is there's so many different points along the way. Like, you can completely ignore the parents getting shot and all of that part of his origin, and his youth and everything, and Gotham and Batman babies and all that bullshit, and still have a whole movie's worth. I mean, Batman Begins is one way of looking at that, but even a different way of make a more live action approach to Mask of the Phantasm would be something interesting to get into.
Mr. Kung Fu could make a return.
Right. Like there's a lot of ground in the first couple years of Batman figuring out how to be Batman, especially since Batman is just a dude. He's not a god with superhuman powers, so he has to figure all of that out and everything. And I think that there's a lot to explore with Batman in the first couple years and towards the end once he's jaded and bitter and and again not a god, so his frail humanity is getting the best of him and everything at that point. I think that either end of the spectrum, and we lost our chance to really explore the other end of the spectrum with Affleck, so I really hope that we get a young, inexperienced, and unwise Batman, maybe a little bit more brutal than usual because he hasn't learned to temper his aggression and his vengeance and everything.
How would you feel about a Batman Beyond movie? Live action.
Yeah, I would love to see it, but it seems unlikely.
Yeah, I agree with Nolan. I think if we would play it smart, then we could have that, and like if they want to find a way to tie Keaton's Batman back into it, because I can see it, if in a perfect world I could see it working out in a Rocky, what's the kid's name?
Oh, Gunn? Was it Gunn?
What?
Or no, Creed?
Yeah, Creed.
Okay, yeah.
In a Rocky Creed kind of way.
I thought you were talking about Rocky 5, not Creed.
No, but just in the passing on of the torch. And in 30 years from now, it's very possible you could see Creed passing on. Like, I would not be surprised if in the last couple movies of the Creed saga that we're seeing now play out, we're introduced to a new apprentice-type character that will show up again in 20 years if the nostalgia factor is there and everything.
Right. That's a big thing in sports, and that kind of translates into the superhero realm, because especially for characters that don't have superpowers, it's all about, you need to be in peak physical condition to do that kind of thing.
Right.
So there's a necessity of youth on some level to where you're at your peak contribution.
Right.
And so you inevitably have to pass on the torch, and there's a lot of interesting things that happen in interpersonal relationships whenever that kind of change has to happen.
Right. And from a franchise point of view, I think that's really, really interesting because the Rocky franchise has set itself up in a way that when the nostalgia comes back around for that franchise, you can bring it back in a new and fresh way over and over again. And with a character like Batman and like Batman Beyond, or even like with having his apprentices or something, you could you could set it up in the same way to where now 30, 40 years after the fact, Robert Pattinson may not be Bruce Wayne, he may be Terry McGinnis, and fucking Michael Keaton is an old Batman and everything. If we had stuck to Michael Keaton, I could absolutely see that happening, but I don't think that's going to be what this is. Maybe, like I'm not sure what the deal is as far as like.
I don't know what the studio's going for with this one.
Exactly. You white bastard.
Yeah, this came out at some point.
Yeah. All right, sorry you couldn't hear Nolan have that.
At all.
It's okay, Nolan, because I predict that I personally am going to have some trouble with my microphone on the first word.
Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows?
Is it attached to you right now? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten there yet, but we'll find out when we get
Who
there.
knows?
Who knows?
Ah,
Speaking of notes from the studio, James Gunn shares his hopes for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It's been a long road for director James Gunn over the past year. He was let go by Disney from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Then, right after signing for Warner Brothers' The Suicide Squad, Disney's Al Horn reinstated him. Gunn broke his silence on these events in an interview with Deadline. He also spoke about what he hopes to do with the crew's latest adventure. When you asked me what was saddest for me when I thought it was gone, and anybody at Marvel can tell you, it's this very strange and attached relationship to Rocket. Rocket is me. He really is. Even if that sounds narcissistic. Groot is like my dog. I love Groot in a completely different way. I relate to Rocket and feel compassion for Rocket, but I also feel his story has not been completed. He has an arc that started in the first movie, continued in the second, goes through Infinity War and Endgame, and I was really set to finish that arc in Guardians 3. That was a big loss to me, not being able to finish that story, though I was comforted by the fact that we're still planning to use my script.
huh.
Yeah, so,
Gunn cares about Rocket perhaps more than any other character.
which is interesting because Rocket is definitely the emotional heart and core of that
Right.
team.
Yeah.
Which is strange because you'd think, because all of the plot points center around Star-Lord,
Right.
that he would be the center, but he's really more of just like a set piece for the characters that he...
He's the wall of projection is the
Yeah.
best way that the liquor can bring to say right now. Is like he's the guy you kind of want to be, and like human enough to like see like I could be that, I'm flawed too, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Rocket is the one you kind of go on the journey with. Like he's the point of view character, I think, a lot more
Yeah.
often than anybody else is.
Emotionally, he seems the most developed of any
Right.
of them. Because he's gone through the tortures that you would associate with Nebula, or like the disassociation with Gamora you might associate with, like...
Which that's the thing. I was really expecting to, and I'm sure we will, but I was really expecting the main focus of this movie to be on Gamora.
Right, because she's now in the wind again.
Right, exactly. And like having to refine her character, and it gets into a conversation that I could imagine us having about Carolina in the first word later on, about like identity and like which is the real her, and like without having lived through the same things, will she end up being even a similar person to the person that she was before?
Was
You know-
Endgame written before James Gunn was fired?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Gamora fucking... Oh, what was I going to say? Damn it.
Sorry.
Oh, Gamora was more willing to part with Thanos than Nebula was at first. So I think naturally she would want to separate herself from that kind of life and learn the lesson that she was going to learn from Guardians 1 and 2.
Right.
I think that she was already on that trajectory before all of these events went through, and now she's just gone back to a time where she was more brutal, but not necessarily less sensitive and capable of feeling the way she does in the Guardians movies.
Yeah.
I think that Guardians 3 is most likely to like have her story just sort of like convalesce with the main characters, and like Peter not really understand what his role is anymore because Thor's around. And yeah, I wonder what Thor's role is going to be in all of this.
I was going to say, and also his girlfriend is not his girlfriend because she doesn't remember that.
Yeah. Cause so Star-Lord's fucking like, he's got to do some real thinking.
Okay, so yeah, so I think that Thor is mostly there as a foil to Star-Lord.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna get that much. This isn't a Thor movie.
Right.
And
But, you know, fucking Ragnarok wasn't a Hulk movie.
true, but the thing about
I was
that,
like, I kind of want something like Ragnarok.
thing with that you have to keep in mind though is they can't make a Hulk movie.
Right.
Marvel, they can't make a whole movie, so they have to put him in other movies and give him his story through that.
Right.
They can make Thor movies, and if if my sources are correct, and they've got Hemsworth on for another like 4 or 5 movies, including Guardians and another Thor movie and everything. So they have their space to really explore Thor as a character, but I think in this his growth isn't what's important. It's it's Star-Lord through him.
Yeah.
But so we know that this is going to have a lot of focus on Rocket and obviously Gamora. But then there's also the Thor and Star-Lord dynamic and how Gamora relates into that for Star-Lord. And I mean...
Do you think we're going to lose Drax?
I mean, he did give Disney a lot of fucking trouble. But, I mean, maybe. Like, the funny thing is about the Guardians is they're the most grounded team and, like, humanized team and, like, group in the whole MCU that they're the only team that I can honestly, like, see, like, a major loss without it being in a big, like, tentpole finale kind of thing, you know? Yeah. Like, and obviously Guardians 3 was the finale of the Guardians trilogy and everything, but, like, I couldn't see Rhodey or Pepper dying in Iron Man 3, you know?
The only reason I mention it is because his goal is accomplished. Thanos is gone. So what is his role now? What does he care about? What does he want?
So I think that we have to give...
He has a family now, I guess. He's kind of accepted them as his...
Right.
And he seems fond of Mantis as well.
God, I love Mantis.
Mantis
she's
is
amazing.
The fucking best.
Yeah.
I feel like they're best friends, and I love it.
So, Mantis is the reason I watched Guardians in the first place. Because I watched Infinity War before I watched either Guardians movie. Fucking fell in love with Mantis.
Were you disappointed when she wasn't in the first one?
I was really disappointed, but then I was like, okay, this is still a really good movie. And then, like, in the second one, like, yeah. Like, super happy. And honestly, like, I think her character is at its best in Infinity War, honestly. I enjoyed her best in that because she's...
Yeah, she was like a linchpin. She was their means to almost victory.
Right. And she was... And a character like that's reserved and shy and quiet and everything, like, their first movie of kind of coming into themselves or whatever can be a little bit slow, especially if you come into that character of them having had some development and, like, you know, like, since I'm that kind of person myself, I really love, like, I love Ruby. You know, I love characters that are, like, timid and shy and have those little bursts of quirkiness because they're always a little bit off kilter or whatever. And, like, that's what I love about Mantis is she's just weird and adorable. But in Guardians 2, like, she's mostly just quiet. And it's not really towards the end that you see her starting to kind of break out and be Mantis. Right. But in Infinity War, she's just that the whole way through, and I just love it.
I did really love that first scene with Mantis, though, in Guardians 2, where she's basically shitting on Quill.
The entire time,
Yeah.
It's just so easy to make fun of Star-Lord.
Yeah.
That's probably why he's around.
What else? I don't think there was much else. Have you guys noticed anything in the headlines this week?
In the Blagosphere? Let me think. Not much going on. Oh, I saw people trying to push the fact that John Wick is now starting to outsell Avengers Endgame as it being like a better movie and shutting down Disney.
But like
it's been 3 weeks and it's also like the third or the second highest grossing American film of all time.
Didn't the Endgame break $1 billion in a weekend?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Fuck you.
But then they're like, John
Wick's
Wick's first day completely shattered Endgame. It pushed Endgame down to number 2, and everyone's like, yeah, but like Endgame's literally about to leave theaters. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right.
The movie, or like people reporting on the movie industry does that all the time. It's like #1 movie in America, like 3 weeks after like a major blockbuster, trying to claim that this movie is somehow better just because of the time when it came out. Which I understand from a business aspect, but it's fucking disingenuous.
And I think Detective Pikachu's like number 2 or 3
that's good.
internationally right now.
Yeah.
That movie was so charming.
Yeah. Like, go watch our review. It's up. It's up. It's up. I'm sure it's up.
It definitely is.
It is? Okay, good.
Yes.
Yeah, because see, I'm trying to remember, did I make the fucking intro for that?
You did.
But
It was
yeah,
solid.
go watch that. But it has its flaws.
Yeah.
But it's a very charming movie, and like, I think it's definitely a good springboard. Like, looking at something like, I would even be so bold as to say Iron Man and the original Thor and Captain America, and like the foundation of modern comic book movies, as flawed as they are and what they've grown into. Detective Pikachu has the potential for that, for a Pokemon or Nintendo kind of thing. Like,
and if anything, it's better than the Edward Norton Incredible Hulk.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
As far as footing, they've got better footing than the MCU had to start with.
I'm really excited. Like, if it does well, we should hopefully get more Pokemon movies.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
It's like we talked about in the.
It's such a big universe.
Yeah. Especially when you can take that. I mean, think about it. Like,
it was one city focused around one kind of Pokemon, like one story. Like you could do a whole series of movies out of just people in Rhyme City.
So yeah, like
also tied in like the other Pokemon movies.
Yeah.
Saying,
right, like it exists.
Kanto.
It exists in the main, like in the TV kind of universe, and there's so much that you can do in that world. Like, there are literally millions of kids. If you like take the game universe approach, there are literally millions of kids that have been on a journey from Pallet Town to the Elite Four. That's a unique thing that you can tell that story. And then with every person you interact with, fucking, you can make a movie about a bug catcher in his life with his fucking Caterpie.
I was just
I
thinking
really
that.
want that.
Yeah.
Like, or someone like who's wants to be a gym leader or anything. A buddy cop fucking Officer Jenny movie.
Yeah. There are so many, like, all the gym leaders have really established motivations and stories, especially when you look at them through the lens of the TV show.
Right.
Because anytime they encountered one of them, they would go into why they did the thing that they did.
Yeah.
It did that thing that anime does, where it really cares about the motivations of both the heroes and the villains.
Maybe we'll get a Team Rocket movie? I feel like that's something that could be explored real well.
Yeah, that would be awesome too.
Yeah.
Or like you could do any of the criminal
The
organizations.
Team whatevers.
Team Aquas, Team fucking Volcano, whatever the fuck.
I would honestly, the thing I think I like most about this movie is, other than, which I haven't played Detective Pikachu, so I don't know how much it ties into that.
Yeah, I haven't played that either. Apparently it's like pretty much the same.
Yeah.
It's pretty much, okay.
I think there are liberties taken, but I think,
Right.
yeah.
From what I remember, it is pretty much the same.
Okay. So, I was going to say, like, using some loose things, but because the world is so big, like, it's basically its own planet. You can do, there's all kinds of different places you can go with it, places in history in the future and everything, that you don't have to tie it back to the games.
Right.
To make it, like, part of that whole thing. You can have the movies over here and not fucking with the games at all.
Yeah.
See, one thing I really don't want to have another Pokemon game is, like, if this is, like, somewhat 20 years past whatever happened in Kanto with Mew, then Ash would be either indefinitely 10 or in his 30s. I don't really want to revisit that story too much right now.
Yeah, I don't think that we would. I don't think that outside of the God, nobody fucking needs it or wants it CGI remake of
Pokemon the movie,
Pokemon,
2000.
yeah, the first movie. that's coming out soon. I don't think.
Are we actually getting
Yeah,
that?
we're getting
Yes.
that. I don't know why.
I didn't know it was happening, like, for real.
Dude, have you seen it?
The real first one?
No, like the footage from the new one.
No.
Oh my, it's okay. You guys know how I feel about the Lion King and the Disney remakes, but at least I can admit that those look pretty, even if the characters are lifeless and everything. But oh my God, it's the most bland, like, just somebody threw a fucking like CGI model into the computer and made no effort to give it any kind of expression at all. I'll show you in a minute. We're about to break here in a little bit.
Okay, cool.
But it's awful. But hopefully I don't see anything of like. I like that they acknowledge that Ash and everything is a part of this world, but that happened 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
So like we're not tethered to that. We can move on from that, but that gives us a foundation of the world that we're in.
I would love to see if we're gonna be like unset in time and just go wherever. Then I would love to see a Professor Oak like origin story.
That would be really cool. Mm-hmm. The cool thing about the Pokemon universe and any kind of fantasy world is since it's not our world, there isn't a need for like for time to be parallel. Like Ash has aged like fucking Matt Pat of Game Theory did this, and I forget what he came to, but like Ash has aged maybe 2-3 years in this whole like 30 years of. But since it's not Earth, it's not like the technology has to be tied back to 1998 and everything. Yeah. So you can explore that in different ways.
Yeah, on its basis, the technology involved is super advanced. Like the idea that you could turn a being into light and put it into a ball, where it then exists in a smaller form.
Right. And yeah,
that's fucking nuts.
I kind of want to see Gary more in a movie.
I would love to see a Gary movie. I think it'd be fucking hilarious.
I would love to see like a Jeff Who Lives at Home movie of Ash and like in his 30s and he never won a Pokemon tournament.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
Ash never won a Pokemon tournament, did he?
He has not so far. As long as there's money to be made in Pokemon, then he will not win a tournament, and we will continue to see a different young female character every season.
Right.
Get progressively worse and worse because that's where the money is.
Yeah, I think Ash has gotten closest to winning a tournament by being confused as being red.
Yeah. And I think that's anything else.
Actually, this doesn't revolve like around this, but a lot of people have been bringing in their MCU DVDs, like entire Blu-ray collections, and their comic books to sell at buyback. Now that Endgame's done.
Right.
Like I have so many people just be like, I don't need this anymore. The series is over.
Okay, that's interesting because like I definitely would predict a lot of people kind of stepping away and being like it's a Spider-Man movie, so I think it'll do well, but let's say Black Widow or whatever the next one after that is, I can see a dip in Marvel movies after that because I can see a lot of people being like, okay, I've committed this thing for 11 goddamn years. I'm stepping away. I don't think
nerds have a habit of doing that, though.
No, but nerds aren't.
They're not the mainstream, though.
Exactly. That's the thing that, like, I think that Aaron especially struggles to grasp is that, like, we're not the mainstream. They know they have our tickets. They know we're going to be there.
Yeah.
it's the mainstream audience and the casuals that they have to struggle and fight for. But I would not have expected people to have been to such a point of, like, okay, I don't even want to even watch these at all anymore. Like, I've seen the whole thing now.
They even sold us Homecoming, which I was shocked by because I was like, oh, well, I could see them maybe, like,
Not
getting rid
knowing
of
that there's a
these.
sequel?
Well, I don't, why, I was going along lines of, like, they know that there's a new stage in MCU coming, so they just were moving on that way. But they even sold Homecoming, which didn't make sense to me.
Right.
But I was happy because now I get to buy Homecoming for cheap.
Nice.
I don't understand giving away all that shit just because the series is over, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
because
doesn't make any sense.
you know
to
they
me.
didn't make a lot of money either.
But
Right.
I mean, but then again, I'm the type of person that, like, I will spend $20-$30 on a box set if I'm like, oh, I've got the money to spend, and I may not watch this for 2 years, but sure, like, I'd like to have a 4K box set of The Lion King or what the fuck
Right.
ever.
Yeah,
Like,
why not?
even, like, it's not going to, like deteriorate in value past a certain point. So, like,
Yeah.
like if you've bought it, like, I just don't understand, like, why. But it's interesting to me that people would that's the reaction that some people are having is like.
You know, it's
It's
funny.
just taking up space
They
now.
Right.
even sold me a fully wrapped Man of Steel copy.
All right.
Well, I
Blu-ray.
understand
I mean, that makes perfect sense.
And then X-Men and the
Oh,
Wolverine.
Aaron just hates that he's not here right now. If he fucking watches this.
And then X-Men and the Wolverine collection, like the full collection was also like shrink wrapped still. Which was super weird because they sold us all the MCU movies that they had, a couple like Superman, and then all their X-Men movies.
I
So
don't get that at all.
On
because
Blu-ray.
The fucking DC universe isn't done.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
not any more than usual.
So that actually ties into the conversation in the back half. We'll be talking about the future of television, the post Game of Thrones world, and probably a little bit of the future of the cinematic universe and where film goes from here. But for now, here's the first word. So for the last time for about a year, I guess let's talk about what we expect in the next episode.
I think one of, or perhaps all of the characters will be on the precipice of ruin and self-destruction, and Donut will appear to Tucker and convince him somehow to unsheath the sword, which will then sort of block all this timey-wimey shit, as we've said. Falco will chew on himself in the carpet.
As he does.
I think that fucking Sarge will come to some realization that inevitably just gets tossed back because he's Sarge and he needs to ignore most of what happens to him to
Right.
continue to be who he is.
Right. Very, very small steps. Glimpses of
Yeah.
humanity in Sarge.
Good man. We still have Donut and Simmons to see as well. Not Donut. Well, yeah, Donut. Technically, we're going to have to see him
And
get his mind messed with.
Washington?
No. We
We
haven't
saw
seen
Wash.
Wash.
yeah.
Caboose.
Caboose.
Yeah.
What does the negativity in Caboose's mind look like?
Probably involving somewhere around church, right?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, maybe it's like church telling
Killing
him he's not
him?
a good a friend. That's
Church
probably what it
torturing
is.
him.
I know.
Church does it all the time. He did it all the time.
But
He was alive
okay,
to do
hold
it
on.
then.
he
Church,
was alive to do it.
Church insulted him, berated him,
But in the
and
end, church
gave
still
him
loved him.
absolute hell. I can't think of a time the church ever said that he was a bad friend.
Right.
Now he's like, you fucking killed me. But I think even just saying the words, Caboose, you're a bad friend, coming from
Right.
church would just be the most earth-shattering thing I
It's
could
like
possibly imagine.
it's a fucking
Yeah.
Ron Burgundy kind of like, you have bad hair.
Yeah.
You're a bad friend. But what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that would decimate
But
him.
church? No, no.
I hope he wouldn't react to like fucking Ron Burgundy. Now.
I feel like he'd just be like, and just please shut himself out.
No, he'd probably be like, church would never say that.
Yeah.
This isn't real.
I love how, like,
If church is
Caboose
anything, he's my best friend.
Yeah, Caboose is like tied to reality is that church would never say something
Yeah.
like that to him.
Yeah.
no matter what.
I'm really curious to know what the negativity in Cabooses' mind is.
I think that it's going to be similar to the Santa experience, and Caboose will be the one to not have something.
He'll be
we
in there
even
having
saw
coffee with the
sisters.
AI.
What?
We even saw sisters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the last episode.
We
Yeah.
saw a glimpse of hers. I really don't know what the fuck is going on there.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, we already knew, like, her and Griff's. Wait.
Their mom died in a fire.
Yeah. Well, for a minute, I was like, is it Griff or Simmons who's
Griff.
related to her? Yeah, sorry.
So,
But, like, the mom worked in the circus and then died, like, an untimely death.
right.
So she probably blames herself for it because she left right after it happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then Simmons will probably just be, he is the leader of Red Team
Right. Yeah.
and sucks at it.
Since it's all about like putting them in a situation where they basically kill themselves, I see Simmons like being the leader and having to like make a sacrificial leader kind of move for his squadron or something, and wanting to prove himself as a worthy leader, so he takes the someone has to take the bullet, so he does kind of thing, or
That's
he
like, that
he
sounds
jumps
similar
in
to what
shot.
Wash is living now.
I
Yeah.
feel like he would have some sort of existential dread just not having anybody to suck up to.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It's his whole modus operandi.
Right.
I think both the freelancers are going to die. That's my extreme
Damn.
thought for the finale is the next episode, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, both of them are going to die.
I could possibly see one of them. I don't know which one I'd say. I couldn't see both, and I really don't think it'll be either one.
Let's see
I mean,
Carolina before Wash.
I could,
You know,
I
since
could
they've
see
been
Wash.
like,
That's like
they built the whole series around Wash getting
yeah.
getting shot again, that
Right.
they probably won't actually have it in the season now. That's what
Yeah.
it seems like.
I don't know.
I feel like the best way for future seasons to move forward is to like start to remove the branches of the past seasons.
But the way to do that, even though it would be harder, is with the actual Reds and Blues. I mean, Wash and Carolina, there are a lot, especially Carolina. Like, if it's one of them, I could see Wash, since he's been around now for the majority of the show.
Yeah, he's been around for over a decade now.
Right. So I could see Wash before Carolina, but I think that has to happen at some point if it's going to legitimately go on indefinitely. At some point, fucking Gus and Jeff and Matt and all of the old guard are going to be too old or dead and can't do it anymore. So if it's going to go on, and that's a long time from now, obviously, but the point is, if it's going on indefinitely, we have to find a way to get rid of these old characters and bring in new characters. I just don't think that's... I feel like the story would have focused more on that. It's a little bit rushed to bring that into the last episode. Like, I don't feel like this season gave an ending to Carolina or Washington, especially with Washington being the center of the conflict and everything. Like, what happened to him, I don't think that enough time and focus was put on his character this season to...
Really?
Yeah. I think there's some really great moments with Washington, but be like, this is the end for this character, this is it.
Yeah.
I feel like there
Not
would
enough,
have
yeah.
there would have been more focus and more praise or whatever of his journey, and more finality to it, and more...
Not like funeral canon episodes.
Right.
Well, I think in tone, it would be easy to kill Wash off, but you're right. Like, as far as exposure and like arc, it would be strange to kill him. But the tone of the scenes he's been in, like the stuff with Carolina, where he's basically saying, I'm okay to go get shot right now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm all right with me about to basically lose most of my brain function.
Yeah, since he got his brain back, he's been like, he's been coping.
Yeah.
and
I can
figuring everything out.
I can see that happening.
Right.
I can see basically
Him getting brain damaged.
right, Wash being taken out in that capacity, which also incapacitates Carolina because
Right.
she's going to stay and take care of him basically.
Depending on like how Carolina's whole labyrinth thing works out, she may be the one to have that full arc in
Yeah.
this last episode.
But it's just too rushed. Like
Yeah.
I feel like this could set up her dying next season.
Yeah.
If she has a full arc this episode and we get a lot more from her next season, exploring a lot of that side of herself, then I could definitely see her dying. I can definitely see the freelancers just because of who they are going before the Reds and Blues. But I just don't think that it's going to happen yet. I could be wrong though. I just think that we have a little bit more time with them. Although I do wonder how Wash's brain damage basically is going to work out. Like, since they know, are they going to be able to catch it in time and do something about it, or is this basically functionally the end of Washington? But
That's a good point because they were in the middle of a firefight when he got shot because he had just wandered out from that. So they could probably get him to a hospital in time
right.
since getting shot in the lung technically, as long as you're rescued in a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
you can be saved.
I mean, yeah, if they know what's wrong with
yeah.
him, they could
Yeah.
do better.
I mean, they could go into the situation with that knowledge at hand and everything, and so be able to respond
Doc's even
immediately.
there.
To it. Right, which we will see how Doc handles this situation. Doc is the one that I think that could make a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a lot to atone for.
Yeah.
He's gonna
Just-
die again.
Just throughout the entire series.
Yeah. Right.
Does he still have O'Malley inside of him? I hate how I said that. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Well, it's-
O'Malley.
Well,
O'Malley.
so he hasn't had O'Malley
O'Malley.
in him since season
O'Malley.
4, 5, but his
Subconscious.
Yeah.
It's,
right,
it's
exactly.
in him.
It's his subconscious recreated that persona when he was trapped in isolation.
Right.
So, yes, it's kind of permanently
O'Malley.
there, but I think now that he's integrated, it's hard to say. Like, I want to believe that he doesn't, that he's like integrated back and that's like repressed and everything and not going to come back. But it could just pop up at the very end that Doc was O'Malley the whole time, and yeah.
Well, I mean, we see in season 13 that it comes out of him from like going crazy. I doubt that he actually has O'Malley.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
O'Malley is gone. O'Malley is
He
Omega.
is O'Malley now.
Right, and it's just after living with Omega in his head for so long and developing that personality, and then when he was trapped in the void of time and space or whatever in the future cube, and didn't have anyone to talk to, recreated that personality because that's something he was familiar with, and so it's not the real O'Malley. It's just Doc's impression or remembrance of O'Malley. But whether or not that's still around, floating around in his subconscious or not, yeah, I guess that remains to be seen. But I guess we'll find out next week, and then after that, it'll be time for Camp.
Yeah, trailer came out.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, trailer came out for it.
You didn't watch it?
Nah.
Have you seen the death battle with
Ben 10 and Green Lantern.
Nah, I haven't watched it yet.
It's what you would imagine.
Green Lantern wins.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No.
Okay.
But do you know about the X-Alien?
Yeah,
Okay. Basically, like, controls reality.
yeah. Green Lantern's cooler than that.
You're right.
Ben 10 didn't hold a candle. The fucking...
Actually, Alien X did for a minute, and then
Well,
Green
Alien
Lantern
X was able to
replaced.
fight harder than him,
Yeah.
but Green Lantern can move through time also.
Yeah.
So then
And can
he
use
just
all of his
went in.
powers.
Yeah.
Hal Jordan's just better. Like it was a no candle.
Yeah, I don't
Kinda
know why this
thing.
one happened. I think it's just because they both involve space somehow,
They're both green.
and DC and Warner
Green.
Brothers and
Green.
they're both
Green. Green. It's because they're green, Nolan.
Yeah, and Brightest Day. Like,
Dude, no, they need. Oh God, they need to work on what their death battles are gonna be. I want to see Archer versus James Bond.
that'd be a good one. James Bond would probably win.
Nah, Archer would have it in the bag. He would go full on rampage.
You know what?
Archer would murder everyone in the entire world before he lost anything.
He's lost before.
He's lost a few times.
Yeah, but
I don't know Archer well enough to make that.
You need to watch that show.
There's
The
a
show's
pretty
so
big.
good.
He has a pretty big body count.
Yeah, he does.
the last 2 seasons,
I haven't seen the last 2 seasons either.
I haven't either.
darn Hulu.
Everybody kind of fell off on that. Once they started with like the time travel shit and the
There was no time.
There was no
travel.
time. It was him in
not
it's him
time
in a
travel,
coma.
The
Never.
coma shit.
Coma.
That
Yeah, the
never
coma
works.
stuff.
Which like it's like entertaining to watch, but like it does nothing for the story because it doesn't matter once he wakes up. These last seasons don't mean anything if he wakes up.
Yeah.
Right. That's like a really old school trope. He was dreaming the whole time.
I mean, at least from the very beginning, they made it like aware that he's dreaming the whole time.
Did they?
Yeah,
Yes.
they've shown him in multiple clips in a coma.
Yeah.
Right, but not like in that first episode. He like gets shot and falls into the pool.
I'm talking about the next season after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a retcon.
Right.
Yeah.
Him getting shot? No, he's in a coma.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah, the coma thing.
That's not a retcon. He's still in the coma.
No, but so they had a season, and then the next season they revealed that the season before it was all a dream or a coma or something.
Yeah, and that's the current season was also a dream.
Well, no, he's
Yeah.
been in a coma, and the past
The
few
last
seasons
2.
have been like the same characters in different weird scenarios.
right.
So like this season was like I think it was called Danger Island, and
Yeah.
they all lived
Like in the
obviously
jungle.
in a jungle, and it was dangerous. The season before that, yeah, that's all you need to know. It was really, really bad.
Yeah.
The
Also
season before that, it was like, did you watch that one?
It was like old gangsters.
Yeah.
They
I haven't
didn't-
watched
It
it
was
yet.
like,
they didn't
um,
reveal until the end of that season that it was.
Oh, hello. How are you?
It's a little close there, buddy.
It's like I just want to be on the podcast, guys. Gonna be on the podcast with you, Ellie.
I'm so sorry. I almost jumped right on top of you.
No, it's fine.
Nolan, do you want to take my shoe?
Well, fuck, I have him, but I don't know where he is. There he is.
Don't put him on the ball.
He's just on the table.
And that's the first word. So, welcome back.
I should know that was being recorded. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's cool. I always intend to put out a little bit of B-roll and side footage, but I just never get around to it. But I mean to. So hopefully you'll see that conversation we just had. But so I watched. I don't know what it was like. It was in the early seasons. It had to be like 1, 2, maybe 3 of Game of Thrones. But I only watched like spatterings and little bits of it. I didn't watch much of it. I know you've kept up with it, but not your.
I haven't seen this last season, this
Right.
final season.
Yeah.
So this isn't a review of Game of Thrones. It's more of just a cultural analysis and where does television go from here? Because on one hand, there's like, what do you go bigger than Game of Thrones?
I've seen a lot of people are looking forward to the Lord of the Rings TV series that's coming out.
The Lord of the Rings TV series is coming out. The Mandalorian is coming out. But The Lord of the Rings is coming out on Amazon, right?
I have no idea.
If I remember right, it's coming out on
That
Amazon.
makes sense because like you can get Game of Thrones through Amazon.
Right. And obviously, The Mandalorian is coming out on Disney Plus, and HBO has kind of reached that point of, I guess probably some people still have HBO as part of like their cable subscription and watch it on TV and actually watch Game of Thrones on Sunday at 6 o'clock, whatever time it came on.
Old people who still have cable.
But you can get it through Hulu for additional.
Well, that's the thing. Like, where TV as a traditional model of whether it's network or cable or premium cable, of like this show happens now at this time.
Yeah.
Is that like, is there anywhere to go from that beyond Game of Thrones? Because everything that I see is like the next step beyond that is all happening in the subscription world.
I think, TV's been on this train for the past few years of getting more and more on streaming services and not being so much about the cable aspect. I think that this older generation that's still doing that is probably never going to give that up at this point.
Yeah.
They've already had the impetus to for years and years now. People have been in their ear about it. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that audience is locked in, and as they die off, I mean, probably we're not going to see cable being what it is today.
Oh, for sure.
But I think
it's so much cheaper to pay for a single subscription service than
Funhouse. It was on one of their Filmhouse podcasts. I forget which one, but they basically broke it down of like, if you had Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, First, HBO Go, or Now, whichever one it is currently. You had all the main, and Amazon Prime had all the main streaming services. You still would not be out as much money as you were with a cable subscription, and getting more channels than you want, and not the specific ones that you actually want. So it's still cheaper, not much, only like $5 or $10, but it's still cheaper to go with subscriptions. But I guess my question is like, do we see normal television take a taper off after this and into more not necessarily grounded, but lower budget? I guess grounded is the right word to use.
I don't think yet. I think we're going to see a slew of a bunch of different trying to be high concept, really big shows, like your Westworld types.
Right.
Your really ambitious, big worlds, trying to create this entire universe. And I think there's going to be a few of them that are competing with each other, and inevitably all of them are not going to do as well as Game of Thrones.
Right.
And that we're going to continually see it pare down into these more niche audiences. Like, TV shows are going to be more focused to like a specific demographic, so that these subscriptions are going to make more sense because it's garnered to the individual.
Yeah.
You don't need to sell all of cable, or your networks don't need to sell like all of cable. Like NBC and ABC and Fox and shit aren't going to be as relevant because it's just going to be about which faction you've joined with. Like,
right.
Are you a Netflix person? What kind of stuff do you watch on Netflix? There's probably going to be a show exactly for you. Even now, there probably is a show that's garnered exactly to your specifications.
Oh, most definitely. I think it's kind of like the Sopranos effect, because in the wake of the Sopranos, and it took a while, but I think that things move a lot faster now than they did even then. But in the wake of the Sopranos, you have shows like Mad Men, which I fucking love. And
you didn't think it was too slow?
What?
Mad Men?
I don't mind slow.
I don't mind slow either.
Like slow can be arduous and droll through the experience, but I appreciate slow in the aftermath.
Yeah.
Being able to see a show slowly develop and slowly birth itself over time. And obviously Breaking Bad is another show that definitely takes a lot of cues from The Sopranos. So I think the places to...
It takes its time, too, in the early seasons. It takes its time in the early seasons also.
I think the places to pay attention on TV won't be HBO, because they'll be looking for the next thing, and hopefully not trying to reproduce Game of Thrones, because as much as I love Boardwalk Empire, it doesn't and it tries to be The Sopranos in the 20s, since it is The Sopranos in the 20s, it didn't make the waves that The Sopranos did and then Game of Thrones did. They need to do something different to stand out. But I think the places to be paying attention from TV are Showtime and AMC. They're the ones that will be like be paying the most attention to what HBO is doing and trying to replicate that, and that'll be setting the pace in the same way that Sopranos set the pace for Mad Men and Breaking Bad, and those shows kind of set the pace for all of television for the next 5 years or so. I think that whatever those smaller premium channels do in the aftermath of Game of Thrones will be kind of determining where cable goes from here. But
it's strange that American movie classics has become so important to television.
Right.
I think as well, as long as Netflix is still just waiting until entire seasons out on TV, on cable to upload everything, that people will still be getting cable. Because Supernatural, they're still running, but this is their last season. But none of their stuff, unless they've changed it, is uploaded until the full season's already out on Netflix.
I think that...
Because I know they were changing some stuff.
Yeah, that's just an agreement between the streaming services and them.
I know.
They just don't want to sell it yet until it's all been out, because it takes away the impetus for them to have it on their channels. But I think, as conglomerations start to happen and businesses start to buy each other,
I think that going forward, that model will kind of go away a little bit of the just dropping everything at once, because for one thing, it shows up really... I think South Park is the show that really puts it on display the most of how different you it's a subconscious thing, but how different you approach a show that's all there, that you can watch immediately, and something that unfolds week to week. From a storytelling perspective, there's no anticipation, there's no response to it, and from a marketing perspective, I think that the DC Universe streaming service, whatever, really understands this well, that if you put out your entire show, especially if you're launching a new platform, and let's say let's say you have the rights to fucking Zorro or something, and you make this epic, gritty 12-part Zorro series that you've fucking hyped up and you've put all this marketing into, and everyone is looking forward to it, and it all drops on one day. Well, then everyone is going to buy the subscription, or not buy the subscription. They're going to get the trial run, because everything has a trial run, and they're going to watch the thing. They're going to take their week. They're going to maybe check out a few other things, and then they're going to fuck off.
Right.
But if you have something coming out, like Titans was, coming out once a week on your streaming service, then you have people locked in at least for 6, 7, however many episodes, weeks that you have. And then you have a much better chance of keeping people locked in if they've already been committed to something for so long and they've had time to explore other things in it. So
I think what they assume is that if they release everything all at once, then they're going to be on the page enough to have seen something else that they want to watch. And they always advertise what's coming out next, and it's big whenever you open Netflix.
I think that's what they hope and assume,
right.
But
I
think
not necessarily what's going to happen.
I think that the more secure model is the delayed release model.
Which is what Hulu does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Hulu is basically television.
It's like a week late.
No, I mean, most of it's a day late, if that. Yeah.
I guess when I started watching Community on it, it was they would always release it a week after.
Yes, it depends on
They've
the.
gotten like
That
a
was
lot
like, yeah,
better
that was,
with it.
yeah, it was years ago.
Yeah, it depends on the show and yeah.
Bob's Burgers, it's like an hour after it airs.
Yeah.
Right. Just so the network can get the ratings. And then,
Right.
And I think it's this. I think it's like 3 days with Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and then Handmaid's Tales is a week later.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand why that they can't just like the networks are connected to Hulu. Just take those ratings and give them to the network. I don't give a shit who gets the ratings. Like I just want it to be on Hulu when it comes out so I can watch the fucking thing because I pay for Hulu sometimes, not at the moment, to watch the thing so I don't have to pay for cable to watch the thing.
It might just be logistically a little bit more difficult to get all of like that IP address information gathered and then sent over. But it seems like it should be should be some kind of automation available.
I mean,
for
Disney owns a majority stake in Hulu now, so I'm sure it'll be a lot of change on that front. And like I would not be surprised if The Mandalorian, which I'm really, really excited about, comes out episodically. Like, I would honestly be surprised if it drops the first season all on, like, opening day or whatever. Like, especially with Disney having the largesse it does. They will not be lacking for content on their streaming platform. But I mean, I don't know. Have we reached the peak of television? Like,
I hope so.
Yeah, like, because honestly, the funny thing is, the MCU is almost indistinguishable from television. Like, there's even, I think, a channel on YouTube or Twitch or something that takes, like, all the Marvel movies and cuts it up into 30-minute chunks and, like, shows it as, like, as a TV series. But that's the form that it basically is. Like, if you go, I'm sorry, as good as Infinity War and Endgame are, if you go into them without any knowledge whatsoever of those characters, they're shit.
Yeah.
They're shit movies without having that foreknowledge and everything. And the more you know, the more enjoyable they are. And you can't really get away with that. Like, in a trilogy or something, you can kind of get away with like establishing the main characters earlier on, but even so, like, there's enough of Luke, Leia, and Han in Return of the Jedi, if that's the only Star Wars movie you've seen, to know who those characters are and to get what their motivations are and everything. Especially Luke as the main character and being the one who wasn't completely fucked character-wise by that movie. But with Marvel, it's very much like a TV show, and on the inverse, you have Game of Thrones, which is very much like a movie. Like, other than the fact that it comes out on whatever Sundays at a certain time or whatever.
And the episodes are an hour long.
Exactly. Like, the budget, they're that long. Like, that's part of television is, like, okay, you have to be at this place at this time to watch it. And this is the window that you have to work in because we have to work around advertisers and everything else.
And
but since
it's intro, break, act break, and then it's fucking rising action, act break.
Exactly.
Conflict, act break, resolution, act break.
The act structure is very much more hard-lined in television because of all of the act breaks and everything. But with Game of Thrones breaking down the television film barrier and the MCU breaking down the film television barrier, you know, it's interesting to see where entertainment goes from here. And like those lines are so blurred at this point.
It's all just gonna start bleeding together. I think that's kind of how the world's going anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since globalization just sort of started happening to us.
Yeah.
Like with the advent of the internet, as it's like all things.
I think the only holdout, like the only thing that's putting up any real resistance is the box office. Like if film companies or studios, whatever, would accept that people would rather just and people would pay like box office prices to just watch the movie or show or whatever at home on the day of release.
Yeah.
If they can get over that hurdle, that's like the only thing stopping the basically there being no real distinction of big budget things between like
the theater has to be something discernible from your home experience.
Right. Like what is functionally outside of the theater experience and the television experience, what is the difference between this last season of Game of Thrones and Phase 3 of the MCU?
Possibly not much. I haven't seen the last season of Game of Thrones.
Right.
But, it functions the same way. It all requires prior knowledge to be understanding of what the characters' motivations are and why they're the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially the same idea. It's all just this conglomeration of characters and themes, and like the medium is just becoming so meshed together.
Mm-hmm.
Media in general is probably going to unify at some point.
Mm-hmm.
All this technology is trying to bid its way into our easiest access.
Yeah.
This kind of sounds Black Mirror-y, but I do think eventually humans will have implants that we have in our eyes.
Okay, so I guess we can get into one of those kind of conversations. Like, it's interesting to me that, like, I noticed a very strong wave of futurism and transhumanism in, like, 2015, 16, latter years of the Obama administration. And I've never bought into that. I don't think that we're ever going to reach that point, because I think we're always going to find some way to stall ourselves on that. But I think it's interesting to me that, like, there was this, like, idealism and hope of, like, oh yeah, we're going to colonize space, and we're going to, like, have implants, and we're going to live forever. And, like, I definitely have a lot of moral objections to all of those things. And then
you have moral objections to implants?
Yeah.
Like, explain.
Again, liquor, but
Is it like the technology with the implant that?
No, I think that humans as animals have an impulse to reproduce. And I think that it is immoral and unethical to sustain human life beyond what is possible, even with the most advanced medical possibilities. Like, if humans could reach a point to where with global healthcare we can live to 150, that's cool. If we're expanding that to like 500-600 years or something because we have cybernetic implants and everything, that to me is ecologically unbalanced, because we still reproduce like humans do, and we produce at a.
What if we didn't, though?
But
if
we
reproduce less, it wouldn't be, I guess, that big of an issue. But like the thing is that the less kids that you have, the worse it is for the economy, and the economy starts to fall. So we have to constantly keep reproducing.
Right, but that's a symptomatic of
Right. Yeah. Right. But I don't think that you can expect that. Like, even if just everybody had one kid, I think that if everybody can live to be 200-300 years with cybernetic implants and everything, I think that's too much, because our biological rhythms and reproduction schedule and timing is of a species that's supposed to live to 40 to 80 years.
Right.
Like, I think that it's...
But what if it took a step further than that, and it wasn't that humanity... I mean, this is kind of like would shit on any sort of perspective on individualism or anything like that. But if humanity was taken as we'll say that all of the human beings on some level exist as information, and that you could somehow contain all of that information into one source and let that exist as a being.
Okay.
In congruence with technology, that I think is the summit of what people who have this like futurist idea would want, is that inevitably we would all become part of this same like biotechnical organism.
That sounds, and I'm, spoiler alert, I'm a socialist, and I'm very much about like the group and about society, but that sounds like an absolute fucking hell to me. Just a complete lack of individuality, of just
here's the thing, is that you as an individual would still exist, but it's like the separation between you and all other things, all other human things would be gone.
Okay, that just sounds like...
It's like if you were to completely merge with another human being, and that new human being was all of the things that you were and that other person was, then in essence you wouldn't be lost, you would just be more.
It just sounds like the kind of bullshit that we talk about on Does It Science, just with a more fucking technocratic fucking spin to it.
What do you mean?
Like, it just sounds like absolute bullshit. Like,
why?
Just the idea of computing consciousness in a way that everything is part of some like greater network or something. I don't know. I'm too drunk to be having this conversation right now, apparently. And that I'm not as against. I have my issues with transhumanism. It's more of futurism and like space colonization that I have.
You wouldn't want to do space colonization?
If the option was given to me, I would stay here.
Stay here and die out? If it comes to it?
Yeah. Because I don't want to be a part. If my kind of take is, honestly, if we can't get ourselves out of the situation that we have put ourselves into, then fuck us, damn us. We should not be finding, even if say in the next, let's say somehow miraculously in the next 10 years, we find a planet. Let's say we get a space station or something, or Mars terraformed to a point that we can move humanity there. We're just obfuscating the consequences of our actions. And
on some level, humanity has done that a lot.
Sure, but if we fuck the world for the next so many thousand years until it can reset itself and develop post-humanity, then that's what we leave behind. But I don't feel right about going to another planet.
But if there's no life on that other planet.
But if we bring life to that planet, we can't sustain ourselves without having an ecosystem.
Right.
So if we create an ecosystem, and then the same fucking thing happens because we create another goddamn capitalistic fucking hellscape there, then
2 planets down.
right, exactly.
But then that leaves out no opportunity for us to learn the lesson of
Fine.
history.
Fine. That's what we fucking get. Like that's what we get for not learning our lesson.
Right, but that just puts humanity in this box where it can't ever be anything but the shit thing that it is already.
But if that's what humanity is going to be, then fuck it. Like there's
it would inevitably be if you don't give it the opportunity to be anything else.
But I don't. If humanity is not going to learn, if humanity is staring its own extinction in the face, like in the fact of in the next 100 years, the planet will reach a point that humans can't live here anymore, and in the next 10 years, it'll reach a point that we can't do anything about it.
Right.
Then what hope do we have of going somewhere else and starting over and understanding that?
Well, because we'll have all the knowledge that we had beforehand of how we fucked it up.
But
that doesn't always mean that we're gonna
People
succeed.
still know how we fucked it up, and like a lot of oil companies covered that up.
Right,
They're
but
like they knew and they didn't care.
right, but if it's like staring us in the face to the point of we have to leave the planet, and like obviously.
But imagine it staring us in the face by leaving the planet, and we do, and then 3 or 4 generations pass, and the people and society doesn't change, and so the people in power are still the people in power, and the narrative is something different. Not that we fucked the world up, but that these certain people fucked the world up, or something that made
Wall-E shit.
right. And there isn't any lesson learned, and the lesson isn't passed down through the generations. Then eventually the same, and it could take 10,000 years, but eventually, if the lessons aren't learned here, then the same power structures move from here to somewhere else, then the same things will repeat themselves inevitably somewhere else. Because if we can't learn that lesson now, then I highly doubt that we're going to learn it next time, and we won't know for probably another 10, 20,000 years if we learn that lesson. If we go somewhere else, but the consequences will be the same. And honestly, I would rather just take my lumps with, like, if I have to, like, be one of the few that's like, okay, I accept the consequences of being a human, I'm okay with that.
Then you're deciding that the consequence of humanity is ruin if you resign it only to that.
But
I'm saying that like history has proven not to be such a straight line of it moves in cycles certainly, but
right.
It's not the same moving pieces at all time. It's like the power changes hands a lot. It just hasn't here recently because of what is in place. I think it's possible that humanity could be something entirely unrecognizable from what it is now in 100 years.
Yeah, I do too, and I'm obviously
I just think that
optimistic as much as I can be on that front.
Well, let's pare this idea down and say that if you lived in a kingdom that was destroying itself and just like the entire nation was completely fucking itself over, and you learned this lesson, you and a small few people had to suffer the consequences of this and were able to escape, then it seems like to me in that first iteration of this new society you would try to build, if that was your goal, that you would at least attempt to put in the mechanisms for it to prevent future atrocities. I think that's what history has inevitably tried to do, and that's why people are so concerned with like fascism and calling people Hitler nowadays, because we've got this archetype for what we know to be a world threat.
No, sure, but my biggest concern with it is, like I said before, if the power structures that we have now aren't dismantled, which if the power structures we have now are dismantled, then we can save our planet.
I don't see how, if we get to that point, they wouldn't be. You know?
So imagine that we reach a point that it's a point of no return, and we've spent 5 or 10 years terraforming Mars, and fucking it's still fucking capitalist hell world, and Jeff Bezos has like the majority share of the Mars project, and so he's going to move 3 million people to Mars to start a colony. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like,
I can't see the world being okay with that.
But I don't
think they're gonna have a choice.
Exactly.
I mean, like, that's like the point of severe revolution if people were to do that kind of thing, because it takes like things getting real shitty for people to actually want to do something like that. And right now, I think the only reason stuff hasn't toppled is because people are too comfortable in what they're experiencing right now. So I think if we were like watching the ship loading up of fucking people who were deemed worthy to go to Mars, then that would piss off most of everybody.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about accelerationism.
And the people who are making the thing that is, I mean, you'd have to involve anybody who was involved in the construction, and they might have connections to people who wouldn't be able to get on the thing, so they would have reasons to cast aspersions on the whole project if it wasn't something that inherently just involved all of humanity.
I don't know. I'm more of the opinion, and again, this is getting into theory. Not necessarily where I wanted this, so I can.
Right. No, this got really philosophical.
But I am more of the opinion that when there is that element that when the going gets tough and everything, then people react. But I also think that there's that element of when people are struggling to just get by, then they may be more politically enraged, but
they're not necessarily more likely to act.
Exactly.
They just need to continue to exist.
Exactly. So I think
that also, like, if the world ends, people are still gonna be blaming them, like, you took a 30-minute shower with hot water, you didn't go vegan.
Yeah, that is something that we
split into small factions. They're not gonna all get together.
That is something that we have taken a very miscalculated approach on. Is
the individual
yeah.
Instead of large corporations that are dumping into oceans.
Yeah, there's some fucking not shit an individual can do about that, but we as a people would have to. I hate that so much of what I'm concerned with now. The only solution more and more seems to be violent.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to hurt anybody, but I also don't see any options.
Okay, well, I can't really say this next part on camera, and I have to pee. So, bye.